For years now, I've been using the familiar Windows 10 and Windows 11, but I've decided that I want to switch to macOS. Here's why. For plenty of time, Windows has been my home operating system, but over a year ago, I tried out macOS and using a Mac for 1 month. I was using a 14-year-old Mac Pro with macOS Mojave. And at the end of the video, here's what I said.
For 1 whole month, I used only my Mac Pro and Cinema Display. None of this Windows crap. In short, I don't like it. It's not for me.
At the time, there was a good reason for that. I was still using this thing for gaming. I was still playing PC games pretty consistently, but it was starting to die out. PC gaming was starting to die out for me. Slowly, over the past year, I've been playing PC games less and less and less. And I've been playing games more on consoles instead of my computer. If I'm not doing PC gaming, then why stay on Windows? Why not try macOS again? Which is why I bought this 2019 5K iMac, and I really, really like it. I like macOS, which is something that I never thought I would say a year ago. Windows, to me, is a 20-year-old operating system. After seeing, like every major Windows version, XP to 11, there is really not that big of a difference. On the surface, there's massive differences every generation. It's a reskin every time. But beneath that reskin, it's still just the old Windows XP. In fact, there's even still a dial-up app in Windows 11 in 2023. Bruh. It's really an operating system that has never left its beta version. Daily, this thing would freeze up, crash, or just whenever I wake up out of sleep mode, randomly restart. It got frustrating, and the updates that there were would never fix the problems. The fact that it hasn't changed since Windows XP is a big thing too. And that's when I decided to start looking for a Mac. Which one would be right for me? I started with a 2015 MacBook Pro and worked my way up to an M2 Mac Mini. But I didn't really feel like spending $600, more like $800 on something that I might not like. And then I landed on the idea of an iMac, which I think every content creator in existence had landed on. Really, because I mean, it's the best Mac in existence. And a really good deal popped up on one, so I bought it. And here it is. And I love it, and I have no plans to go back to Windows. And while I was constantly frustrated with Windows, I haven't had a problem yet on macOS. It sometimes slows down, but I think that's just because of the hardware. In fact, it's a base model. But I wanted to get into something that I've never heard anyone talk about yet, and that is the performance between each operating system. And while this has a Ryzen 5 5600G, integrated graphics, and 16 gigs of RAM, this has a Core i5 8th generation, Radeon Pro 570X graphics, and 8 gigabytes of RAM. In Cinebench, this scores around 10,000 points. This scores about 5,000 points. But the thing is, I have edited 4K footage on both of these using DaVinci Resolve. The PC in DaVinci Resolve likes to freeze and crash while doing 4K editing with effects and titles and things. The Mac in DaVinci Resolve with 4K footage, it breezes through the editing. You can add effects, titles, it runs smooth. If you add too many, of course it'll lag because I mean it only has 8 gigabytes of RAM. But considering that the PC it's replacing has double the power as it, it's really impressive. And I think it all comes down to optimization. I think macOS is just a light operating system where Windows is a very heavy and dense operating system. There have been multiple lulls in my content where there's just nothing. I'm not putting out anything, not posting anything, have no plans to post anything. Partly because I had nothing to post on, but mostly because I had no motivation or inspiration to make content on a video idea that I had. With the Mac and the novelty of it being something new to try, I'm constantly inspired and have motivation to make content. And I have some really good content coming. You should subscribe to see that. As well, if you liked the video, then you should like it. With there being yearly updates, there's no time to get bored. As I'm getting used to it, the novelty is sort of wearing off, but with the announcement of macOS Sonoma, and with this thing getting it, I'm gonna have new inspiration. Really, there was no reason for me to switch to a Mac and to switch to macOS. My PC is plenty good enough. It's just the operating system that it runs is crap. Saying Windows is crap is a bit harsh, but it's really just how I feel about it. It's kind of destroyed itself because a while ago it was a fine operating system. It worked well enough. It still wasn't great, but it worked far better than it has been. And I think ever since I upgraded to Windows 11, it's just totally botched itself. It can hardly run apps, it can hardly do anything, really. But I think Windows is a fine operating system for the people who it actually wants to work for. I'll just leave it at that because I could go more depth into that. So back to the video. Buying this thing and using it has inspired me to make all this content, has given me motivation, and now macOS feels like home. Going back to Windows is almost foreign. It feels like trying to move back into an old house and you don't remember where everything used to go, but then you put the stuff where you think it was and it just doesn't feel right. I know, not very relatable. So am I gonna be selling my PC? No, it'll be sitting around, collecting dust most likely. I'll keep it for the extremely rare times when me and my mates want to hop on Roblox and play some Westbound. So there were my thoughts on Windows after trying out macOS again and why I'm switching to macOS. Subscribe to see more content on this Mac because you betcha there's gonna be more content on it. Thank you for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.